10 years ago, I survived a serious blood infection and went into sepsis, which caused me to become blind and lose both my feet, my left hand, and my right ring finger, and also having skin grafts on 30% of my body.
Carol Decker went through a terrible physical ordeal, but her experience and how she dealt with what happened to her has much to teach us.
I was 33 weeks pregnant and I had a fever of 103.7, and the next day I started having contractions, and so that's when I knew I needed to go to the hospital, and they put on the fetal monitor, and I was begging the nurses to give me something for the pain, and all of a sudden there was like 5 people in the room saying, "We have to get the baby out now." So they were wheeling me down the hall and taking me to the operating room, and I kissed my husband goodbye, and little did I know that would be the last time I would see his face.
Carol's infection turned into sepsis, a potentially deadly complication that can lead to organ failure, drop in blood pressure, and abnormal heart function.
I was put into a drug-induced coma and hooked up to every kind of machine you can think of. I was intubated and had a central line put in to access my arteries. They pumped me full of fluids because my blood pressure dropped so much, so I probably weighed about 200 pounds from all the fluids that they pumped me up with. My fever went as high as 106.9. My kidneys started to shut down, so I was on dialysis a few different times, and luckily they started working again.
Carol wasn't out of the woods yet, as more complications arose.
I started forming blood clots on the tops of my thighs, my abdomen, and my forearms. They were like wounds on my body. Then I would have to undergo the grueling, horrific thing of skin grafting, where they took the skin from my back all the way from my scapula to my hips to use as my donor skin on those affected areas.
And there was one more crippling blow.
They did a CT and found out that my ocular nerve was damaged and left me completely blind as well. So I was faced with several complications and spent the next 3 months in the hospital. My newborn baby, Sophia, was able to go home after 5 weeks.
But surviving sepsis in the hospital wasn't the end of her struggle.
I went home, and that's kind of when my freight train hit. As we pulled up in the driveway, the first thing I realized is that my husband was going to have to carry me into the house and help me to the bathroom because I had to go. My anxiety spiraled out of control, and the first day I came home, I begged my husband to go back to the hospital. I told him that I didn't belong and that I couldn't be a wife and a mother to my girls, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to live.
Carol knew she was at a crossroads.
I had the choice, and everyone has that choice. You know, either you give up or pick up. And I could have done either, and no one would have ever been mad at me for wanting to lay in bed the rest of my life. But I wanted to choose to be happy, and I felt that I could make a positive place for my children and have a good attitude. I had this huge support system. My family and friends and community were all behind me. So I decided to go back to the hospital and do rehab for the next 5 weeks, where it's like intense. Learning how to walk and feed myself, dress myself, and everything. So learning how to live again, basically.
Carol uses technology, her prosthetics, and her own indomitable spirit to live a life that is strikingly normal.
Basically, when I'm in my own home, everything is set up for me, and so I do laundry, and I can do my own makeup and hair and get dressed. Everything's organized in my house, and if you touch my stuff, you're in big trouble.
She learned something else, however.
Life is a gift. If you don't open it, you'll never experience the beauty inside. When something like this happens, you ask yourself, why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? And what could I have done differently? And I think we all go through that and ask ourselves those questions when we go through loss or trials. One of the other mottos that I have is to let go, which means to let go of your fear, because you can get over things if you can get over the fear of it first. You'll be able to accomplish a lot more.
Carol is grateful for every moment and for the love of her family that helps carry her through.
Realizing that I was able to be at home with my family and my husband was next to me in bed, and that I could hear my girls giggling, and that I could do things with them, and that I wasn't dead, that I was alive, and I couldn't take that for granted. And gratitude just continually just started coming into my heart, and realizing that I needed to embrace life and live it to the fullest. And here I am 10 years later. My daughter will be 10 on June 10th of this year, and it's just, life is good.